Hey guys, welcome back to the Pack and Clint show here on Total Coverage Sports. Super excited for you guys to join us once again. Please feel free and please do like, subscribe, comment, retweet to all the different things to help grow the platform. Follow sports. This week or today, we're going to be talking about some of the games from this past weekend. We're talking Georgia, Bama. We're going to talk Penn State, Oregon. We're going to talk Ole Miss, LSU. And then for all the Texas fans in here, we're going to talk about Texas, Florida. I'm going to go pretty into depth about what to expect from Texas's offense against Florida's defense. I have about 10 clips I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to walk you through them, and I'm going to tell you what to expect on Saturday. And then after that, we'll preview and pick some of the games, including Virginia, Louisville. We're going to talk a couple Big 12 games. We're going to talk about Houston, Texas Tech. And then we'll obviously talk about Miami, Florida State. So we've got a pretty loaded show for you guys today. Clint, how are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Excited for this week coming up, starting SEC play, and just ready to get down to the breakdown.
Yeah, so obviously a super busy past week. 3 top 15 matchups. We're first going to talk about the arguably the most exciting game. Went to double overtime, and that's Penn State, Oregon. In the end, Oregon won. A really fun game, really competitive game. Oregon started out really slow after the first quarter. I think it was 3-0. Heading into half, it was 3-3, and then you saw Oregon in the third and fourth quarter take a pretty sizable lead, going up 17-3. Penn State answers back with 2 touchdowns of their own, including one in the last minute. And then Penn State scores in overtime. Oregon answers. Oregon scores in overtime. And then Drew Aller throws a pick on the first play of double overtime. So pretty close game. To me, it felt like Oregon was generally the better team. I just thought offensively they had much more of a rhythm. It felt like they were able to do more of the things that they wanted to do. They were on schedule more often. They weren't as limited. Whereas Penn State, it felt like when they couldn't run the ball, it felt like a real struggle, especially with the way Andy Kotelnicki's offense works, where they really need that run game because of how much gimmicky stuff they do. They're very RPO based. We're going to run side to side. We'll show some outside zone. We'll move our left tackle into the slot, and then we'll motion him back, and we'll do a bunch of different exotic things with our offensive line. So I thought when they couldn't run the ball, it felt like a real struggle for them. Obviously, in the fourth quarter, when you saw them go to more pro style stuff where they were running true passing concepts, they obviously had more success. But to me, I thought the better team won. You got to give a lot of credit to Oregon. I thought they had a really good game plan on both sides, and they did a good job executing it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It definitely felt like Oregon was dominating for most of the game, even though in the first half the scoreboard was only at 3-3. And if you just looked at that, look at the box score, you'd assume that's a very tight game. But it was just with the Oregon's inability to finish drives a lot in the first half. They cost themselves a lot when it came to penalties or whether it came to just bad play calling in general. Biggest takeaway I got from that game, Dante Moore looked amazing. He on his first true road test. I mean, going into Happy Valley in a wide out, which is arguably one of the best environments in the country for any game that you can play at. For him to go there and for him to play like he did and with the poise and composure that he did, it showed that he's going to be a real problem in college football for years to come, for however long he stays. I was very impressed by the Oregon offense, how it ran, especially coming into the second half. Whenever they kind of took that 10-3, 17-3 lead, even though Penn State did crawl back at late in the second half to bring it to overtime and make it a game, it felt like Oregon was in control for the majority of the game. So I was very I was very happy just to see a good game overall. I think the better team came out on top that day. I think you will going to your point about showing how limited Penn State's offense was. You did see that when Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton were both stopped and they couldn't really get anything on the ground. They really had trouble throwing the ball through the air. And I think just going pretty much, yeah, just showing the limitations of their offense. So um, that was a really good game. I thought Oregon was the better team. I had Penn State winning just because I thought the wideout was going to be too much for a fresh. I don't know if he's a freshman, but for a guy's first road start to be at Penn State. But I was proven wrong. Dante Moore is a baller, and yeah, it was just a great game.
Yeah, I thought Dante Moore played really well. When the pockets weren't always clean and he didn't always have guys being wide open, I thought he did a really good job of navigating tight pockets and scrambling and keeping his eyes downfield, making good decisions. So to me, I thought he did everything that you look for, and he didn't look like a guy who was really making his first true road start. Obviously, he played at UCLA as a freshman, and we all remember that was not a great season for him. He didn't play very well, so to see the maturation and the growth that he's made over these year and a half is pretty impressive, and it's a testament to the Oregon coaching staff, to Will Stein and their QB coaches. So you got to give them a lot of credit there. Outside of that, I thought Penn State's defense, obviously, even though they lost, I thought they played really well. They did a good job in coverage. They, for the most part, were able to stop the run, even after Oregon was able to get them out of their three high shell they really like. So I thought it was a good defensive game. I thought both defenses were really impressive. Oregon obviously is going to always be impressive defensively just because they've got a really good staff there with Dan Lanning and Tosh Lupoy. So I thought I think to me, it solidified Oregon as a national title contender, especially knowing that this is what Dante Moore is going to be. And the defense looks really, really good. The DBs, the cornerbacks do a really good job in the run game, and they're obviously doing a good job in coverage. So I think there's nothing to me that says Oregon's not a legitimate title contender. And for Penn State, it's kind of the same question we've always had of do they have the passing game in order to actually challenge teams when they can stop the run and when we get into tighter playoff games. And so far, I think the question is no.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with everything you just said there. Don't really have much to add on to that, but from the defensive side, yeah, it was a very good game, despite the score ended up being 30-27, 30-24, my bad. Um, that was all a lot of late time touchdowns, and for most of the time, it was a very solid defensive game.
Yeah. So then the second game, obviously the other one at 6:30 was Bama and Georgia. It was going into the game, Georgia had a 33 game win streak on the line at home. Bama was 2-1, obviously with a really, really bad loss to Florida State, who the day before got beat by Virginia. I didn't know what to expect going into the game. I picked Georgia in a really close game just because you trust Kirby Smart at home in these really competitive, high-ranked matchup games, and it was the opposite. I thought Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, Kane Womack all had really, really good games. All did a tremendous job in terms of game planning. They did a really, especially Ryan Grubb, the first half, obviously scoring 24 points, going 13 of 19 on third down in total. That's a sign of really good play calling and really good execution, in particular by Ty Simpson. I thought, again, navigated the pocket really, really well. I thought he did an awesome job of getting through his reads. There's a lot of times where if you watch the tape and if you have access to the all 22, Ty Simpson was able to get to a third read or a backside dig, which again is not something that a lot of college quarterbacks can do. So I was really impressed by that. And then on the other side, I thought Kane Womack did a really nice job. They're pretty notoriously a pretty heavy pressure team who plays cover one behind it. And against Georgia, you saw a lot of zone coverage. You saw a lot of cover three, a lot of Tampa two, some cover two in there, and I thought they did a really good job of forcing Gunnar Stockton to actually read the field and have to decide what concepts are going to open up. And I don't think he did a very good job of that. I think he threw for something like 180 passing yards. It might have even been less than that. So you got to give a lot of credit to Kane Womack and that and the defense from Alabama. And then on the other side again for Georgia, it's another really slow start for them against Tennessee. I think they gave up 24 points in the first half. They didn't get a stop on their first three drives. And then on Saturday, their first two drives for Bama were touchdowns, and then they scored right before the half, and then they also got a field goal from a turnover. So that's a real concern for Georgia. You got to be better in the first half because we know once you get into the second half, Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart are the best adjusters defensively in college football. But you can't keep starting like that and putting your offense in massive holes.
Yeah, man. Totally agree with everything you just said. The big takeaway that I had from the game, when looking back at the stats and just looking back at how the game unfolded on paper, the big key takeaway for me from that game and what Josh Pate likes to call paper pocket stat is the time of possession difference. Alabama's time of possession in this game was 35 minutes and 36 seconds to Georgia only having 24 minutes and 24 seconds. Having that big of a difference in time of possession at home field and against a team that's really good like Alabama, especially offensively, it's going to be hard to win a game like that whenever you're getting 3 and outs early. And in the first 2 minutes of the game, in the first two drives for each team, these were the time of possessions for the first two drives. Georgia, 49 seconds, 3 plays, punt. Georgia, 4 plays, 1 minute 43 punt. And the first two drives where Alabama scored and took a 14-0 lead, they had 6 minutes and 30 seconds, 14-play touchdown drive, and a 6 minute and 57-second 14-play touchdown drive. So they moved the ball a lot better. They were really taking time off that clock. They were moving the ball a lot more efficiently. And going to your Gunnar Stockton point, he had way less than 180. He only had 130 passing yards on 20 attempts, completing 13 of them. And nothing really showed from Georgia offensively. I wasn't impressed with much of anything they did at all. I mean, Chauncey Bowens had a couple great runs during that game, but other than that, they were very anemic on offense for a lot of it. Ty Simpson, he looked really good. He has bounced back since that game versus Florida State to where that offense looked very anemic to where it just looked like it wasn't, I wouldn't say anemic, but it wasn't moving like it should be. And overall, Alabama has really transformed their team from week one to where it is now to go into Georgia and to beat Georgia at home for the first time since 2019 when Will Muschamp went in with South Carolina and beat them. I mean, that's not an easy task to do for any team that's really good. I mean, Georgia's one of the top in the country. They're one of the top coached by Kirby Smart. So I think Alabama showed in that game that they're going to be a true contender for the rest of the year in the SEC. I think they're one of the top teams. I still think in some areas defensively they probably have some gaps that can be exposed by the right offensive coordinator. But Mike Bobo is not someone I've really been impressed by his whole time at Georgia. I don't think his play calling is that great, and I'm just very interested to see how this team does the rest of the season. The other big point I want to make is even though Alabama did dominate for a lot of that game and their passing game was great, one thing that really needs to get fixed is the rushing game. I mean, you have for their top two rushers for them having 26 carries combined and only getting 76 yards on the ground. That's not good in any realm against any team. So that's something that they're going to need to clean up. Georgia, they're going to need to clean up offensively what their identity is, honestly, because I don't know if they really have a true identity on offense in a sense from what I saw. But it was another really good game, and I picked Georgia. I thought them having the home field advantage was going to help them a lot just because any streak like they had to where you're winning every single game at home since 2019, that's obviously settling to your home environment. But I was proven wrong with that one again, and Alabama looks like a real good team for the rest of the year. And one more thing I want to get to, Jonathan Heinrich, thanks for tuning in. We will be covering Texas A&M and Mississippi State later. At the end of every show, we give 5 predictions for other games around the country and SEC. So stay tuned, and we'll get to that game later.
Yeah. I'm just going to give my final thoughts on Bama, Georgia. I thought you make a really good point with the run game for Alabama. That's a real concern for them. You got to be able to run the ball to win the SEC. I think that that's a real concern for them. They got to figure that out, whether that's changing up what you're running, maybe becoming more of a counter based team, maybe going more gap scheme oriented, or trying outside zone, trying to be a little bit more perimeter oriented in terms of how you're running the ball. You just have to figure out a way to run the ball in this conference. And then talking about, you had mentioned Alabama's defense, and there's still some questions. I agree. I saw in the run game, I think they gave up almost 200 rushing yards. It was a pretty significant amount to win the SEC, right? You got to stop the run and you got to be able to run the ball. And against Alabama and against Georgia, it did not matter for Alabama, but to me, that's something that as they head down the line and they play some of these teams like in Oklahoma, or they play LSU, or they play South Carolina, I think even Missouri, I think you're going to have to be able to stop the run and run the ball in order to beat all those teams, especially when you go on the road and you're going to go play some of those teams. So I think it's a really good point you made. I think you said it really well. And then speaking of a team that stopped the run, Ole Miss against LSU. Ole Miss's defense had a tremendous day against LSU. I thought Pete Golding had a really good game plan. You saw a lot of the times they were rushing only three defenders and then dropping eight. And a lot of the times when they were dropping eight, they would play cover three. So they would play three deep players and then play five under, or they would play some form of quarters where they had four people in deep quarters and then four underneath. And they did a really good job of just condensing the space for all of the different route concepts that LSU wants to run. They did a good job of taking away Nussmeier's first and second read, and they did a really good job in the run game. I thought this was the first time that their linebackers really seemed to understand their keys, and they did a good job of fitting in the right spots, knowing when to work downhill, when to work more laterally. They were really patient. They did a good job of finding the right gaps, and then they did a good job tackling. So I was really impressed with the Ole Miss defense. And then on the other side, Trinidad Chambliss is a really, really good quarterback. We've seen that now through three games. He was really impressive against Arkansas, and now he was impressive when he got his little brief action against Kentucky, and now he's looked really, really good against LSU. I thought his legs are a huge difference maker. The amount of times you saw him scramble on a second and long and then turn it into a third and short or even a first down was pretty sizable. It made a pretty significant impact in the game to me. And then I was surprised by how much success Ole Miss had one on one against LSU's corners, especially late where they were throwing fade routes, and I think they hit a lot. They hit a decent amount of them for explosives, and late in the game, that felt like the real big difference maker. So you got to give a lot of credit to Ole Miss. I know that was a game that you, I, and Carl all thought Ole Miss would win, but I was even more impressed with their defense than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah, you make a great point with all those things. Starting their defense, we both talked about the big key factor in that game was going to be, can LSU run the ball and can Ole Miss stop the run, because that's been something that two of those teams all year have had difficulties doing on both sides. But we saw in the game Saturday that Ole Miss had no trouble stopping the run. I mean, LSU's leading rusher only rushed for 22 yards, and they ended up only getting a combined 59 rushing yards. For a team that's been their biggest struggle on defense all year and the biggest weak point of their whole team, to be able to hold a team to 59 rushing yards is no easy task. I don't care who you're playing. And also another big factor that you talked about was Trinidad Chambliss. When you watch him, he may not have the prettiest spiral when he throws. He may not have the prettiest ball when he throws, but dang, I mean, he makes some really good decisions whenever he does. He's very accurate on the run from what we saw. He can fit into tight windows. He can do everything that they need him to do. I mean, and we even talked about again last week that you never expected coming into the season that someone who transferred from a D2 school that a lot of us didn't know who he was until he came in versus Arkansas, that he was really going to do anything this year or even get any playing time. And for him to take over Austin Simmons' spot, it's just one of those things where it's the next man up mentality. And no spot is guaranteed in football. When Austin Simmons went down, it looked like, oh wow, Ole Miss may not have a great year after all. I mean, Trinidad just comes in and he balls out. He's balled out all 3 games that he's played in. And another, speaking of the offensive performance against LSU's defense, we talked about that LSU hadn't had really any test on offense. I mean, they played Clemson, which at the time that looked like a great win. That looked like, hey, LSU has a really good defense this year against what we thought was going to be an explosive Clemson offense that was just going to really be one of the top in the nation. And also a Florida team that we thought was going to have a really good offense with DJ Lagway and the weapons around him. But we've come to see now at this point that neither of those two are true. They both have very anemic offenses, 2 of the worst in the Power Four. And I was really looking forward to this game the most because I wanted to see what LSU's defense was really made of, or if it was just they had the benefit of playing teams that had no pulse offensively. And I think it showed on Saturday that yeah, they only held Ole Miss to 24 points, but when you really watch the game and you look at what happened and look on paper, their defense did not play great really in any terms, in my opinion. So I'm very impressed with Ole Miss. I think they're going to be a contender the rest of the year. Also, I know I've said that for a lot of teams, but I mean, they realistically look like a team that can make the 12-team playoff and could possibly make a run. Kawan Lacey looked decent. Liked what I saw from him. And other than that, I think the rest is just kind of weekly talking points. LSU's passing game, I'm not very impressed with at all. I think that I don't know if Garrett Nussmeier is really dealing with an injury, if it's something serious or if it's something similar to Quinn deal with last year. But their passing game just can't seem to get off the ground in it at all. The receivers are not helping much either, to be completely honest. I mean, you got Nick Anderson get that 1 touchdown that was really big off the deflection, but other than that, I haven't really seen anything from them offensively that makes me think that they're going to catch any stride later this year.
Yeah, I think Nuss is hurt. I think if you watch him last year and you look at just the velocity on balls and you look at the deep ball and then you watch him throw this year and you look at those same throws, you can notice a lack of velocity and even in the motion, he's putting his whole body into throws that he really doesn't need to. To me, I think it looks pretty serious. I think he should probably sit out the rest of the year, get surgery, get healthy, and see what happens after that because I think for them and for him, I don't think it helps either one of them if he's going to look like that every Saturday. I don't think they're going to win many football games in the SEC if Nussmeier is playing like that.
No, yeah, I completely agree. And when I mentioned Quinn, just something similar to him last year, because he dealt with an injury for most of last year, thankfully for him, our offense worked a certain way to where he was able to play through that injury and it really didn't affect him much. Because even before that, we were a very short through the air team and just get yards off of that, a lot of yaks. And for LSU, I don't think that's what their offense is really built around. I think that they like to take a lot of deep shots with Nussmeier and they like to get the explosive passing through the air. Whereas thankfully for us, we just did a lot of RPO screens and just short dink and dunk games. So I agree with your point in a sense that I don't think Nussmeier staying in the game is going to help them much. I don't know how much Michael Van Buren is going to really help them though. So I think whichever decision they make, I don't think they're in a great spot really for the rest of the year. I don't have much trust in Michael Van Buren because yes, Mississippi State's a better team this year. Yes, they have better weapons to use, but also at the same time, you saw what he did last year for Mississippi State while Blake Shapen was out, and a lot of those games, it was a lot on him. He didn't look very great. He didn't look very comfortable in the pocket, and I just don't know how much he's going to really elevate that offense in a way that Nussmeier isn't already.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of a tough position to be in because if Nussmeier's healthy and because I thought he looked tremendous against Clemson after that game, it kind of reinforced everything that I'd been saying over the offseason about him, where I thought he was a really, really good processor. I thought he saw the field really well. I really liked the way he moved in the pocket. He had good arm strength, good arm talent. And now with him not healthy, it feels like there's a pretty significant issue there because they still can't run the ball, and you don't know what you're gonna get from Michael Van Buren, right? Like, it's not like this was a highly heralded guy out of the portal. He was told by Mississippi State he wasn't gonna start next year, and to me, I think LSU probably brought him in as more of a developmental guy where we're gonna let you sit for a year and then you're gonna be able to take the reins. So I think it's gonna be a lot of pressure on Van Buren. I'm not sure that I think it's gonna go fantastically. Now, I think the defense is really, really good. They do a good job of stopping the run. They've got tremendous corners, but you just don't know what it looks like if the offense is going to look like that, where you get into rock fights and it takes one turnover, it takes one explosive play, and you lose a game. We saw this last year with Oklahoma, where they won games because of turnovers, where they won the Auburn game off a pick six, but then they also lost the Missouri game because of the Jackson Arnold turnover. So when you're in these rock fights, it becomes really, really hard. Your season and games are really high variance, and that's kind of a concern for LSU going forward.
Yeah, man. Um, can't really add much onto that. You said everything that I was gonna say or that I could say. So I think that we're in a point in the show to where I think now we get to start talking about Texas and some SEC play
Yeah.
finally. Very excited for this weekend. So we got some clips that Pack has brought to the show to really show what Texas offense is going to be going up against in a very, very good Florida defense. One that I would consider, and I know Pat considers top three in the SEC, and one that I think could be a top 10 in the nation defense. So he's going to show us some clips, see what we could do to get around those certain schemes, and to see what we need to do be to be efficient offensively against this really stout Florida defense.
Yeah, so I'm gonna start you guys by letting you know kind of what Florida does really well in terms of the run game, and then I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I think Texas can do to take advantage of the defense Florida runs, and then I'll show you some of the looks, some of the coverages that Florida runs, some of the stuff that Arch Manning is gonna see, and stuff that he's gonna have to do a good job of understanding, and then I'll show you guys how you can attack those concepts, and then that'll be about 10 clips, and we'll go from there. We'll answer any questions that you guys have, but I'm going to show the first clip now, and then we'll just get started. I'll play this a couple times, and I'll just walk through it, right? So first, Miami is just going to run a very simple zone cut play where they're down blocking here up to this Mike. They're down blocking here. They're getting a kick out block, and they're pretty much just looking to hit an interior gap. And then what you see from Florida is number 8. He's going to fill a gap, and this is because as a linebacker, when an internal gap opens up to the side of the back, whether that's a gap, which is the gaps to the right and left of the center, or B gap, which is the gaps to the right or the gaps to the left of the left guard and to the right of the right guard. You have to fill those immediately because the easiest way to get to the end zone on a run play is going straight through the middle. So linebackers are taught to play hot or to fill gaps immediately. So you're going to see number 8 do that. And then number 5, he's doing what's known as a stack fit. So he's going to follow off of number 94. He's going to track him. He's going to be stacked right over the top of him. And then he's going to be tracking the ball. So wherever the ball goes, that's where he's going to go. So if the ball were to go to my left, he would then stack left. And he's just basically doing what's known as a ball fit, where he's playing off the ball. And you're going to see that here, where he's now looking. He sees the ball kick here. You can see his footwork start to work to the right. And then when the ball bounces, he bounces with it, right? So that's a really good run fit by number 5 for Florida. And I think in general, when Florida is running or when Florida faces inside zone, I think they do a really, really good job against it. I think they do a good job of knowing their keys. They do a good job of seeing the right things and getting into the right gaps. And so with that, you kind of have to be a little bit more creative to have success in the run game. And that's what Miami did. That's the next clip I'm going to show you guys. So we're going to start from the top. So Miami opens up in a 2-by-2 formation with the tight end he's off the ball. He's in what some people call a sniffer set. And then they've got a stack into the boundary. They've got the back to the left of the quarterback. And then what they're going to do is they're going to motion the backside of the stack across the formation, and then they're going to pull the guard and the tackle. I believe it might be the guard and the uh, and the Y. They're going to run him across, and they're going to run counter away from the motion. You can see it here. So there's the motion across. They fake the jet sweep, and then they run counter to the opposite side. They get about 13 yards on the play. It's not super complicated, right? It's not something that Texas doesn't do. They run a lot of counter. They run a lot of GY counter. So to me, this is something that I would do a lot. I would try to mess with the eyes of the linebackers. You've got to make them think one thing and then do the opposite, because if you're static in terms of what you're doing, if you don't try to confuse them at all, I think they do a really nice job of stacking and fitting the run. So then, outside of being creative, not only in terms of your plays, I think in terms of your personnel. Last week, if you guys were with us, you heard me talk about the pony package, and that's all this is right here. This is what's known as 20 personnel. Well, really 21 personnel, because they've got a Y right here. 21 personnel is just having two running backs and then one tight end. Here they've got both running backs offset the quarterback, and then what they're going to do is they're going to pull the tackle, they're going to pull the guard, but they're also then going to use the running back as a lead player. So they get three down blockers, they get three pullers. And what it does, because Florida has only got four guys for that, and they don't have enough guys to block. And you're going to see this hits for a massive explosive where the where the running back's able to take out the force player. He's able to give the back a massive lane, and this is going to end up going for something like 20 yards, right? So this is some of the stuff that you can do, especially out of the pony package. And this is what Florida got hurt by a lot against Miami. The very next play, again, they're back in the pony package. This time they're going to release both guards. They're going to down block everyone else. They're going to wham the tight end, and they're going to run what's known as crunch. And this one, again, big hole opens up. They get about 8 yards. It's very simple stuff. It's not stuff that Texas can't do. It's not stuff that Texas doesn't do. It's just you have to be willing to use a little bit more eye candy, a little bit more manipulation. Try to get the Florida linebackers' eyes in the wrong spot. Where again, you can see both of the linebackers are flowing towards the play side back, towards the back that's to the left of Carson Beck. And then the ball ends up cutting back, and neither of them are in a position to stop the run. I'm going to play that one more time just so you guys can see that, where you see 5 and 10. They end up working towards number 4, and then the other back gets about 10 yards just because of it. So then another example of the pony package again, right? They're in the pony package. They run motion, and then they just run a simple bubble screen, a swing screen with the back, and it's another massive explosive. It's again not complicated, right? Like Texas has run this. You actually saw this a lot against Florida, or you saw this. Yeah, you saw this a lot against Florida last year, and you saw it a lot against Georgia last year, where they would get into two back sets, and then they would run motion and they would throw it to the back on a swing screen. This is stuff that you can really take advantage of against Florida, especially because they're going to leave their DBs on islands. They're not going to play with super spread formations. They're going to match what you do. So if you're condensed, they're going to be condensed. And if you're spread, they're going to be spread. So if you can be condensed in order to spread, I think you can have a lot of success against Florida. And then I'm now going to focus more on some of the coverage stuff, because obviously Texas isn't always going to be in the pony package, right? They're going to have to do different things. They're going to have to show different concepts. You can't live in the pony package all game, because eventually they will be able to stop you. Ron Roberts is a tremendous DC. He'll eventually figure out ways to attack you and figure out ways to solve some of the issues that you're throwing at him. So this is one of the things that Florida is going to throw at Arch Manning. This is known as this is quarters. They're gonna bracket the slot receiver with the to the field. You can see the slot corner and the safety are going to snap their eyes and their hips to the number two receiver right there. And then you can see that they're running versus the stack. They're running basically man coverage is a quarters concept. This is what Ron Roberts does a lot of. He's going to run a lot of quarters concepts. He's going to throw a lot of man coverage in those quarters, and he's going to force your receivers to beat double teams. He's going to force your quarterback into really tough throws. Here you can see there's nothing open. Back ends up taking a sack. I see Tej asked a question about how good the DBs are. I think they're really good. I think they do a tremendous job playing with good eyes. They do a really good job of knowing their concepts. They do a good job of playing in phase, getting their eyes on the ball. They held a really good Miami offense to under, I think, 200 passing yards. So this is a good DB room. It'll be a good test for Arch Manning and the Texas receivers. I'll show the clip one more time where you can see that bracket working, and then the safety works to bracket the other receiver who ends up working over the middle of the field. They call that Indian or bracket. It's one of the main concepts they'll run out of quarters. I would expect to see it a lot on Saturday, especially if you get Ryan Wingo or DeAndre Moore in the slot. I would expect them to get doubled and for them to try to take away those receivers. So Florida is not only just going to run a lot of exotic coverages, they're also going to do a lot of different things with their front. Here they're showing five. They're showing 5 men at the line of scrimmage. They're showing pressure with five, but they're going to end up dropping two of them and then bringing the DB that you see stacked over the edge to the boundary, right? And then they're going to play cover three behind it. It forces a scramble where the corner gets a free path at Carson Beck, and you end up making an errant throw that ends up being incomplete. So they're going to be exotic in terms of the coverages they're running. They're going to be exotic in terms of the pressures they're running. So Arch Manning is going to see a lot. I'm going to show you guys another clip of another pressure that they ran here. They're going to show four, right? They're showing five. They've got a six guy walked up, but they're actually going to drop both of their edges into the hooks, and they're going to play Tampa 2 out of this, right? And so, again, Beck has to throw it to a flat. It's an inaccurate pass because he's showing something that Beck did not expect. It's something that Manning's not going to expect, where you're going to see a lot of concepts that you're just not that familiar with, a lot of concepts that Arch wouldn't have seen before. So he's going to have to do a good job of playing on time, making sure that he's actually seeing what's going on. He's not deciding pre snap where he's going with the ball, being patient with what he's seeing, which has been kind of a struggle for him. You saw this last year, funny enough, against Florida, where he threw a post into triple coverage because he thought he saw one thing, and then pre-snap, the picture changed on him. So you got to have a better performance from Arch Manning in terms of how he's seeing the field, what he's seeing on the field, and then the decision making. So now that we've kind of talked about some of the coverages that Florida is going to throw at Texas, I'm going to show you guys how you can attack that. So the first way to attack them is to get into bunches and getting into stacks. To the left side of the screen, you can see that there's a tight end, there's a receiver, and then there's another receiver, and they're all pretty condensed. If you remember about like 2 minutes ago, I said you can condense them in order to spread them, and I think you can have a lot of success. Here it's a pretty simple, it's just another swing screen to the tight end, but there's no leverage for the Florida DBs. They don't have any ability to leverage the ball outside, right? Because the corner has to work to his deep quarter. That's going to be that's just a tough play for a DB to make. It's something that I think Texas can exploit, condense in order to spread, force those Florida DBs to work through a bunch of trash in order to get to the football. You can have success doing that. Again, it's not something that Texas doesn't do. You see them get into bunches and condense bunches a lot. You see it usually about 5 to 10 times a game. They do it pretty frequently. So I don't think it's stuff that Texas doesn't do. Texas can have success against Florida, but you can't just try to win by being better than them, by saying, my guy is better than your guy. He's going to run a better route than you. He's going to run his route better than you can defend him. We're going to block better than you can create disruption in the backfield. That's stuff that I would not do against this defense. I think you have to be creative. You have to figure out ways to put them in space and put them in conflict like you do here. Because again, the DB who's lined up over Malachi Tony, he's the guy who would normally play the flat route, who would normally play this angle route from the tight end, but because he gets blocked, he has no ability to work outside. He's not able to make a tackle, and they get about 10 yards. And then again, condensing, right? This is now a stack instead of a bunch where you've got two receivers here, two receivers here, and they attack the linebacker into the boundary where the receiver is going to fake like he's running an inside route and then he's going to break outside. That's what's known as a pivot route or a whip route. And you can see it gets wide open, right? Where the Florida linebackers, while they do a good job generally, they're still linebackers. You can take advantage of them in coverage because a lot of their concepts are built around man principles where they want to play you man to man and then they want to play it with certain types of rules involved, whether that's we're going to get a double on someone if he's in the slot, or you're going to play man coverage unless the receiver runs shallow and inside, where they're basically playing an extended version of man coverage with rules. And you can take advantage of that because in something like this is what's known for Florida or people in the Saban family as trio or stacks, which means that the corner and the linebacker are playing in and out on the receivers. So the corner is going to take the first guy who goes outside, and the linebacker is going to take the first receiver who goes inside. And what ends up happening is the linebacker now has to take that whip return, and because the receiver breaks outside or breaks inside, the linebacker has to take him. And then you whip back outside. And it's a tough cover for a linebacker. Again, it's not anything super complicated. It's just putting their DBs, putting their linebackers in conflict, making it tough on them, making them have to execute more than normal, putting them in disadvantageous positions. To me, that's going to be the main thing that Texas has to do. They have to figure out ways to they're going to have to figure out ways to stress this Florida defense. They're going to have to figure out ways to put them in conflict and then take advantage when they do put players in conflict.
Yeah, man, you went to that film study very well. I want to get to two comments before I get my breakdown. Um, Ohio State Buckeyes Zone 6, thank you for tuning in. Arch won't see a defense better than Ohio State until maybe playoffs. Sark needs to just let the ball fly. I agree with that first point that you said. I think that Ohio State, at least for now, has the best defense in the country. I don't think there's really much arguing that. From all the games that they've played so far, defensive efficiency that they've had has been great. If you just look at the stats, Ohio State is number one in points per game allowed, only allowing 5.5 points a game, which I make this point a lot. I don't care what opponent you play. That's not easy to do to, on average, keep your opponents out of the end zone every game. So, I mean, great point right there. Sark needs to just let the ball fly. I don't know about that. I think you need to have a good balance of run and pass. And then 94 could have picked that pass off had he stepped into the throwing lane.
Yeah, I mean, he could have, but again, those are a lot of them are taught to do a specific thing, right? In these defenses, it's not always the way you see on Madden where you're animating the character, you're controlling it. They're told to do certain things. It's to just give an example. I'll describe what's known as mod coverage, just to give kind of an insight into how some of these things work. So mod is a quarters concept. The cornerback is going to play man coverage on the receiver unless the receiver is shallow or inside. So if the receiver runs a slant, if he runs a drag, if he runs a hitch, then the cornerback is going to zone off to the deep quarter. He's not going to continue playing man to man coverage. That's an example of one of those things where you see a lot of guys get beat on hitches for Georgia or for Alabama or for even Texas when they're in cover three, and you think, that shouldn't have happened. The corner should be able to make a play on the hitch. But then you realize what they're taught. They're taught that they don't have the hitch. They're going to zone off to a deep third because when you see a lot of hitch routes or you see a lot of slant routes, you expect a vertical route from the number two receiver. So you're trying to protect against that. So a lot of the times you'll see something on TV or you'll see something on tape and you think he should have made that play, or if he does this thing, then he'll be able to make a play. And that's not always how it works, where they're taught to do specific things. They're taught to do a role. So I don't necessarily disagree with you. And it's not like meant to be an attack to you, just kind of describing something. And then just to touch on your previous comment about the Ohio State defense, I agree. I think that's the best defense in the country. Arvell Reese has been tremendous. I think the way that Matt Patricia has used him as a blitzer and less so as like a true linebacker, where he's having to stack fit and fit as a true linebacker, letting him play super downhill and then playing him as a spy, I think's been really, really smart by Patricia. Obviously, they have who I believe to be the best player in America in Caleb Downs. So that's a really good roster, and Matt Patricia's done a tremendous job of using their strengths and playing to their strengths. So I don't disagree with you. I think there's a lot of really good defenses in the SEC, though. Georgia, I know that they gave up 41 to Tennessee and 24 to Bama, but that's always going to be really good defense, especially because of how young they are. They're starting a lot of really young guys. And so once you get into November, they're no longer young. They've got 9, 8, 10 games of experience and they're ready to go. So Texas is gonna have to play a really good Georgia defense. They're gonna play a pretty good A&M defense, who you expect to continue making strides throughout the weeks. And then they're gonna play OU in a couple weeks, who again is a top three defense in the SEC, probably right there with Texas in terms of the best defense in the SEC. So you got to make good decisions if you're Arch Manning. You got to be smart, but I agree. I think you do still need to let Arch play his game and play to his strengths.
Perfect, man. And then this one thing, I'll answer this. I think the X factor will be Arch. UF hasn't played anyone with a mobile QB. They have played someone mobile QB, and that was their first loss to USF. I mean, Byron Brown's he's not known for being a big threat in the air. He's known for being a really tough runner, being someone that's hard to bring down, and really just known for his legs. I do agree that Arch's legs could play a big factor into the game. I think it does add a different piece that the defense has to really worry about, whereas they didn't really have to worry about it too much with Carson Beck or Garrett Nussmeier. So great point you made, Tej. All right, and then I'm going to get to my breakdown of the game. So this game I find very interesting just from the perspective of Florida's offense versus Texas defense, and that dynamic I think is going to be probably the biggest factor when going to this game. So looking at Texas defense and Florida's offenses, ranking in terms of certain different types of areas. Texas defense ranks fourth overall, giving up only 212 yards per game. Their scoring defense is number 2 in the nation, only allowing 7.8 yards a game. And Florida's offense is 115th in the FBS, only getting 328.3 yards a game, and 99th in scoring offense, only getting 22 a game. Now, just those alone, that doesn't really make a matchup what it is. But the big thing that I think here is these two things when it comes to our defense versus our offense. A, DJ Lagway, he has not shown us he can do anything at all this year. He has not shown any true threat in the air, anything that really is going to make you have to play to the pass a lot. I think you can play a lot to the run, and just because Jaden Ball is going to be their big thing offensively. And I think you can stack the box a lot, and I think you can win doing that. Now, our rush defense is fourth in the nation with 59.8 yards a game, which is perfect for this type of game with Jaden Ball being their big X factor on offense. Whereas the rushing game is only 107th in the nation, only getting 123 rush yards a game. So I think that matchup right there is going to favor Texas a lot. I think still offensively, we might see a little bit of struggles from Arch. I think just as you'll see any offense get struggles against Florida's defense. The big matchup I think Texas is going to want to try to expose here in that game for us offensively and Florida defensively, I would say is probably going to be. I would probably bet in. I think it's going to be evenly in the pass and run game. I don't think you're going to see much dominance on the offense from either or. I think that Florida is very balanced defensively. So I I think the big thing is you just want to see Arch make good decisions. You want to see him be comfortable in the pocket. You want to see our running backs be able to actually get yards on the plays. You want to see maybe 3 or 4 yards of carry at least. You don't want it to be like the two Georgia games last year to where we're fighting to get 1 or 2 yards of carry and we're ending the game with our leading rusher getting 20 something rushing yards.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't win a game doing that. So I think that we'll win this game. I think my score prediction for this game is probably going to be around, I would say maybe 20, 24 to 6 around that score. If we can get into 30s, I would love that, and it'd make me feel a lot more comfortable offensively for us the year. As correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think any team's gotten 30 on Florida this year yet.
No.
No, okay. So if we can do that, I'll feel really comfortable. But I think a 24-6 score is very likely. I think it'll be a very close score going into halftime. I wouldn't be shocked if it was a one-score game, like a 13-6 in that range. But I think in the second half, we'll get some drives, and I think we'll be able to get some explosive chunk plays to where it's going to really be able to allow us to build on that lead and retain it the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think you said it really well. I'll take Texas to win 24-6. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a one-score game at the half, whether that's 10-3, 13-6, and just late in the game, Texas is able to lean on Florida a little bit because I didn't get to touch on it when I was talking about some of the tape of Florida, but they're really banged up. Obviously, they lost Caleb Banks for the season. They've now lost Aaron Gates, who's one of their starting cornerbacks, one of their starting nickelbacks. They've lost one of their defensive tackles and Michael Burrow. They've lost for a little bit. They had lost George Gumps. So this is not a team that's entirely healthy. I didn't even mention that they lost Dijon Johnson. So this is a team that defensively has lost a lot. They don't have the depth that they had heading into the season, but again, really good coach team. Ron Roberts is one of the 10 best defensive coordinators in the entire country for me. I think he's schematically brilliant. He does a lot of different things. They're going to stress Arch and stress Steve Sarkisian. So I'm going to say 24-6. I think to me, if Texas scores above 30, I that says a lot about how far Arch Manning has come. And I think that it makes you think of Texas again in that national title scene, and it changes the way you view them.
Yeah, that's perfect, man. So, like we said earlier, replying to someone's comment, we will be going through 5 games. I know this show has been taking a lot of time, so I think we'll go a lot quicker with these picks than we have the past 2 weeks, and we'll be somewhat of a rapid fire session. Give your quick thoughts, 1 to 2 minutes on the teams, and then give your predictions. So for the first game, we'll be starting out with Texas A&M, who just came off a 16-10 Auburn win. Defense looked very good against a Mississippi State team at home at 6:30 p.m. on SEC Network, which has looked very improved from last year. What would your thoughts be on that game?
Yeah, I'm going to take A&M in a close game. I think that I don't really buy the defensive improvement from the game against Auburn. To me, that stems more from the fact that Auburn is atrocious offensively. Jackson Arnold is not a good quarterback, and I think that their offensive line can really struggle at times. So I think this is going to be a pretty high scoring game, something like 41-35, but I'll take the home team. I'll take A&M.
Yeah, man. Just wanted to clear up. I was not saying that A&M's an improved team defensively. I think they had a good defensive performance, but I think also Kent State could have a good defensive performance for Auburn. I don't think it takes much. I think a high school 6A Texas team could. Jackson Arnold's not a good quarterback. He can't read a field to save his life. If his first read's gone, he's just going to try and run the ball. So, I mean, it's not really saying much that you're able to hold them to that. Either way, though, I think A&M's a good team. I think offensively they're very explosive. The scoreboard from last week doesn't really tell how dominant they were on the side of the ball. So I think I'm going to agree with you on that point. It's going to be high scoring. I'm going to take more of a 37 to 28, 37 to 30 route. I think it'll be within 1 to 2 scores. But I think A&M at home, Kyle Field's one of the best in the nation. I think A&M's not really going to miss a beat there. I don't see them really having much of a struggle in any games until probably they go to LSU.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with A&M that game. So second game we're going to be going to is Texas Tech at Houston at 6 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. Got Texas Tech, who's going undefeated and has had probably their best start since the Mike Leach era, against a Houston team who has improved a lot from last year, is undefeated at this point, 4-0, with former Aggie quarterback Connor Weigman leading the team. Pack, I'll let you get your thoughts first.
Yeah, I think it starts with I think this is going to be a low scoring game. I think Houston's been tremendous under Austin Armstrong, the former DC over at Florida. Austin Armstrong's a really smart guy. He's got extensive knowledge of the Saban system. He runs the Saban stuff. He's going to run Ripley's cover three and man match quarters. He's going to throw a lot of stuff that I think if it's Will Hammond, it's stuff that he's not seen a lot of, stuff that you really don't stuff that you don't know what it's going to look like for him. So I think it'll be a low scoring game. I think Houston gives Texas Tech problems early, but I think Texas Tech is more talented. I think they've got better players. So Texas Tech pulls away late, something like 23-13.
Yeah, so this is a game to where I could see the possibility of an upset because it's not so much what the current teams are, it's just the constant disappointment you see from Tech every season, to where when it looks like they're finally catching a stride, to where they finally have some momentum in the season, they drop a game on the road. They've notoriously not been great on the road, but obviously when they went to Utah, they kind of squashed all those stereotypes with them. They played really good. Will Hammond played amazing. I think Baron Morton's going to be starting against Houston from what I've seen, and I think this will be a really good game. I think that Connor Weigman will, despite Tech's defense being really good, I think he'll play really well. I wouldn't say a high scoring game at all. I wouldn't say a low scoring game. I think it's going to be somewhere in the 28-24 range. I wouldn't be shocked if Houston gets an upset, but I will take Texas Tech in that game.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So then we're going to be talking about next. We're going to go into number 24 ranked Virginia, who goes on the road to face Louisville. I'll take Virginia. I think that you always have to be concerned about a letdown game here, but I think they're more talented. I think they'll use this as momentum. I think that Tony Elliott is going to have Virginia ready, and I'll take them to beat Louisville on the road.
So for this game, I'm really interested to see how Virginia handles success, how Virginia is able to handle this big win that they got, that now they're in the rankings undefeated right now, to where the past couple seasons they've been at the bottom barrel of the ACC. I think Louisville is always going to be is always going to be a good team in the ACC. You have Isaac Brown, who's an amazing running back, one of the best in the country, in my opinion. You have Jeff Brom, who's a great coach. I think that it's all going to depend on how Chandler Morris is able to handle going on the road after a big win like this. It's just going to be, you don't know how these teams that aren't used to the success handle it and how they're going to move forward. I have Louisville getting the upset this game, which the line doesn't show an upset because I think Louisville's favored in the line, but I think Louisville's going to end up coming out on top, and I think Virginia's going to suffer their first loss. I just don't think they're completely there as a team right now to where I can have them confidently winning that game. So I'm going to go Louisville. Louisville, like 27-16.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad pick at all. Second to last game we're going to pick is what should have been probably a top 5, top 10 matchup between Miami and Florida State before FSU obviously dropped that game to Virginia on the road. To me, I think that was a little bit of a symptom of not taking the game seriously and maybe looking ahead to Miami. I think Florida State's going to have some revenge on their mind. I think they're going to come out there and play a really good game. But in the end, to me, I think this comes down to the fact that I trust Carson Beck more than I trust Thomas Castellanos. And I trust Miami's defense more than I trust Florida State's defense, who had a really, really poor tackling effort on Friday. And I don't know that you fix that in a week. So I'll take Miami to win on the road 31-20.
Yeah, so this game is in Tallahassee, from what I see, 6:30 p.m. Central Time, ABC. I'm actually going to go the opposite of you. I think that Florida State is going to be. I think they're going to be pissed this game. I think that they're going to come into this game with a chip on their shoulder. I think from what we've talked about, Miami is one of the best teams in the country. They're one of the most complete teams on both sides. But I think that Florida State and that environment, it's going to be one of those games to where, yes, Miami's the better team. On paper, they're the better team. They've shown that they're the better team, but I think it's going to be one of those nights where there's going to be some magic in the air. They're going to catch lightning in a bottle. I think Florida State's going to get some big plays. And I think that Florida State is going to be able to come out on top of that game. Obviously, would not be shocked at all if Miami ends up making this like a two-score win that they get.
Yeah.
But I think that has Miami played on the road like in any big games, or has they even played on the road at all yet?
No.
No, they haven't played on the road yet. So I think going into a big environment, tough environment to play in at forgot the name of their stadium, but
Doak Campbell.
Doak Campbell, yeah. It's gonna be a great game. I am very excited to watch it, but I'm gonna go with Florida State with the upset in this game, and just excited to see a good battle between two great teams.
Yeah, so then before we wrap it up, guys, we're going to be talking Vandy at Bama. To me, I think that Vandy they got torched by the Utah State quarterback, and that's not a great sign when you're going to Tuscaloosa to face Ty Simpson, who has had a tremendous season since that FSU loss. I think he's looked really, really confident. He's looked really, really good. They've got arguably the best wide receiver core in the entire country. So I think Bama is going to score a lot of points. You do kind of concern yourself with the fact that Alabama had a really tough time stopping Georgia's run game, and Vanderbilt's got an even more complex run game because they'll involve Diego Pavia. They'll run some triple option in there. They'll be pretty convoluted in terms of what they're doing in the run game. They'll make it tough on the Alabama linebackers. So I think you could see some nervous moments for the Alabama football team, but I'll take Alabama to win because it's in Tuscaloosa, because of what happened last year in this game, and because I do think that after that Florida State loss, I think that changed kind of. I think it flipped a switch for them, and it changed them for the better. So I'll take Alabama to win 34-20.
Yeah, man. I think this game is going to get ugly at one point. I think that, yeah, Bama has shown that they have struggled stopping the run. But I think that from what happened last year, from how outspoken Diego Pavia is, we talked about this in the summer too at one point about if Vandy's going to have a target on their back. And I don't necessarily think they're going to have a target on their back. I think Bama's going to be really, they're going to have a big chip on their shoulder from last year. I think that Ty Simpson's played amazing. I've not seen anything from that Vandy defense that's really going to make me think that they can truly stop Ty Simpson from their opponents that they've played. These five opponents, you can stop me when there's a great opponent that they've played. Charleston Southern, Virginia Tech, which they gave 22, South Carolina without Lenore Sellers, Georgia State, and Utah State.
Nope.
No great teams. And they've given up 20-plus points in three of those games against a team who I'm pretty sure Old Dominion held them to less than Vanderbilt did. Virginia Tech, I could be wrong, but they gave 35 to Utah State, which that's a horrible amount of points to give up against a team that's way lesser, and then 21 to Georgia State. Granted, that may have been garbage time, but still, I think Bama's going to come out big. I think they're going to win 38-17, in my opinion. I think all this hype around Vanderbilt is going to die down a bit from the fact that Vanderbilt's benefited from playing lesser opponents for the entire year so far.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. So that's all of our picks, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, subscribe, comment, retweet, follow the account. Ghost does a really good job on the Total Coverage Sports Network. They put out really good content every day. In about 30 minutes, I think Avery and Nico from Elite Takes, who a lot of you guys might know from TikTok, they're going to go live and they'll be talking everything about A&M. They do a really good show. They go super into depth. They know a ton about the Aggies, so go check them out. If you guys want to learn a little bit more about OU, Dave does a show earlier in the day on Tuesday, so feel free to show up for those before you come to the Texas shows where Clint and I just talk about Texas and everything around the SEC. We have Savannah, who talks everything about the ACC, and then Emily, who goes over the Big Ten. So, Total Coverage Sports has you covered with every conference. You'll figure out something. You'll be pretty well informed if you just stay with Total Coverage. So, you can't go wrong. So, I want to thank you guys all for being here and have a great night, guys.